That is an extremely interesting viewpoint. I don't think I quite subscribe to it. My view is that the civil servants, knowing that we have a duty to the court and then to our client, effectively the lawyers are out of their control and the civil servants prefer to control. And that's why, in my opinion, I may be wrong, that's why I think that we don't have many friends within the civil service who could influence policy.
Well, I think we'll agree to differ on that one, thank you.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. Our Lord Chancellor recently raised the thorny issue of competitive tendering for criminal contracting. Whether that will apply to other areas of law, I know not. What's your take on this?
I've got a few takes on it. I don't like the way that Grayling has raised this. Certainly what we've been seeing over recent weeks is a sort of a softening up exercise, talking about very high paid QCs and other lawyers in the criminal system. And that's clearly, it was all in preparation for his announcement last week on competitive tendering. Very interestingly, terrible plug here, but the book that Laggers published just a couple of months ago details this. What happened with the LASPO bill was the Legal Aid Minister, Jonathan Ginogly, really wanted to push forward with competitive tendering. They believed strongly that they could save a whole shed load of cash by hitting criminal lawyers with competitive tendering. He lost the argument. Clark basically said, this is too complex, we've got to make the savings within the spending review period, that's up to the general election, we're not going to go for it now. Grayling's come into office and decided, right, well, I've got to make my reputation. He sees it's 2/3 of the budget now, so that's where he's going to have to find the cuts that Treasury demand. And competitive tendering, it has a long and checkered history. It's been around the legal aid policy world for at least 12 years, to my knowledge. And of course across government, since Margaret Thatcher's time, competitive tendering has been the sort of catch-all policy for every public service. So it's no surprise that it's clearly on the agenda. And Grayling announced last week that he was going to advance the original timetable that was set by Clark to introduce competitive tendering. So they're going to start a 8-week consultation. Arguably that will be open to judicial review, we'll see.
Will they listen to the responses or not?
Well, the devil's in the detail with competitive tendering. I mean, New Labour were very serious about introducing it after what was called the Carter Report, and they signed it, they ducked it basically. It's too near the general election. They were being told by the Legal Services Commission, this is very complex, you might not even save any money at the end of the day, and so they put it off. Obviously the coalition's come into office, Clark decided to delay it, Grayling's decided not to. The problems still remain and the complexities of it. The big issue is what do you put into your tender? Now you know very well, Julian, how the system works. It goes from, in this country, police station right the way up to the highest court in the land. You know, you get legal aid in criminal cases. New Labour wanted to just split off police station and magistrates' court work. Now, in some respects that makes sense. You can bundle that up into neat areas of the country and run the tendering exercises. I don't think you can run it in just one area at once, because if you're going to go for this, you have to run it across the country, because you couldn't get the situation where a firm would lose a tender in one area and just go into another area and just set up. But we'll see what happens. I don't think they can save very much money in that way, and I think it will lead to 4 or 5 large firms in each tendering area, and in effect you'll get a cartel, and it won't save any money, certainly in the long run. Roger Smith, who's one of my predecessors at Legal Action Group, did a report on what happens in North America, and pretty much that's what it found. You will find a cartel once you split up the market in that way, and that goes across the public sector. Everything from grounds maintenance to maintenance contracts for hospitals. The market consolidates around a handful of firms, and there's not the sort of cash savings that you might get at the start of the system. Criminal legal aid is much more complicated because, of course, the bulk of the spending is in Crown and High Court work.
And of course, there's only a small amount in any event.
Yeah,
As a percentage of all cases.
exactly. I mean, the volume obviously is far exceeded by the Magistrates' Court and police station work, which, as you know, is falling because of summary justice. Crown Court and High Court work staying about the same, and you can make a decent living at it, not as well as you could have done because of the cutbacks in fees. So most firms, when you talk to them, say, well, to be viable, we need the volume of work across all criminal work, because if they don't get that, they're not a profitable business. And so the government have got a dilemma. Do they just put Magistrates' Court work, and police station work into the tender, or do they put all the criminal work into the tender, which I know some firms are lobbying for? The big question is, though, what happens to the bar? Because clearly the bar's main interest is in Crown and High Court work.
Yes. Of course, we now have, as you know, people like myself, solicitor advocates, who've been snapping at the heels of the bar for some time and are getting more experienced and able to take on cases, the cradle-to-grave approach, which is favoured by many, certainly within the Legal Services Commission, and as I understand it, by ministers as well.
It was certainly favoured by some ministers, and there was certainly a lobbying job done on ministers over this, because some of the larger firms argued that you could get savings of scale. But there's the argument against that is the diversity of supply, which I don't fully accept. I think there's a lot of consolidation anyway going on in the market, which I think will continue, whether we get competitive tendering or not. But also there's where the bar fits in that. Because the bar don't want solicitors ultimately to control their fees and negotiate with them over the fees. And if we go to
OCOF.
Yeah.
one case, one fee, otherwise known as OCOF.
Yeah,
OCOF.
To use the jargon.
Yes.
And you can understand why that is. I think they see themselves as independent, self-employed, and not beholden necessarily to solicitors or anybody else. And we should have that in a country that values lawyers and their independence. However, you look at it, yeah, if you're going to make any savings, that's probably the way that they're going to go. But they're going to have a massive backlash, I would predict, from the bar.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I appreciate your time, you taking your time to come and join us. Thank you very much indeed. I shall make you an honorary lawyer with attitude, and my thanks.
Okay.
Today's episode has been a very serious one, discussing the future of legal aid, and we're grateful to Stephen Hine for giving us his additional thoughts on the matter. However, in order to lighten the tone a little bit, we come to that time that I know our viewers always look forward to, or if not, I know that Julian always looks forward to.
Of course.
And that is our joke of the week.
Right, well, I've just drawn a picture of a 1930s lizard. It's Art Gecko style.
Julian, even for you.
Oh, I've got more of these. Don't worry about that.
Certain depths.
Don't worry, I've got more of them. You see, my mate's girlfriend just broke up with him when she discovered he had a fetish all about pasta. He's feeling kind of lonely at present.
Maybe we should end the show on that note before we have floods of viewers departing. But please don't watch us on the next episode of Lawyers with Attitude.
Please don't watch us on the next Lawyers with Attitude.
sorry.
You want, please watch us on the next episode of Lawyers with Attitude.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, friends, relatives, father of the bride,
Enemies.
brother of the bar mitzvah boy, please join us on the next edition of Lawyers with Attitude.